Over the past several years, we've seen ESPN continue to lose more and more of their audience as they double down on what made them fail in the first place, prioritizing identity politics and social justice discussions ahead of actual sports talk. The fans walked away from ESPN, and now as a result, ESPN is going through a massive bloodbath. They fired 20 on-air personalities in the past week or so, and apparently it isn't stopping there. As we saw people like Jeff Van Gundy, Susie Colbert, Steve Young, Max Kellerman, Keyshawn Johnson, all these people that have been there for a long time start to lose their jobs. The one thing that looked like was safe was Stephen A. Smith, that Stephen A. Smith wasn't going anywhere. Well, Stephen A. Smith has an update on his podcast, and he says that changes are still happening at ESPN, and he could be next. And of course, he can't help but somehow make it racial, because that's what Stephen A. Smith all too often has done in his career. Stephen A. Smith addresses ESPN layoffs. I could be next. Don't ever, ever, ever in your life as a black person take anything for granted. Man, maybe we should go and look at some of these people who were fired and start looking at who got fired based on the color of their skin. And I think you'd realize that a lot of people at ESPN that just got fired are white people. And a lot of the people who are the biggest woke activists at ESPN, man, it's weird. A lot of them still have a job. It's strange how that works, but apparently Stephen A. is saying he possibly could be next. Let's take a look at this. As the slow drip of ESPN layoffs are announced, one person who seems undoubtedly safe is Stephen A. Smith, but maybe that assumption shouldn't be made. After watching some of his friends and now former colleagues get let go, ESPN's foremost personality addressed the network's bloodbath on his Stephen A. Smith Show podcast, stating he takes nothing for granted. Quote, "This ain't the end. More is coming," Smith said of the layoffs. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I could be next. Let me tell you all something. Don't ever, ever, ever in your life as a black person take anything for granted. I told you before, when white folks catch a cold, black folks catch pneumonia. Like, the idea that you're bringing this back, the ESPN just fired a bunch of people, and you're bringing it back to race, while pieces of dog shit like Kendrick Perkins are still employed at that company, right? The fact that you're bringing this back to race and trying to self-victimize black people. You know, when white folks have it bad, black folks just have it worse always. What a fucking joke. Stephen A. Smith, I believe, is ESPN's highest paid employee. Okay? Yet he's still acting like all things are just so rough out here for black people. Stephen A. Smith got fired from ESPN back in like 2009, I think, because he didn't want to take a pay cut. Ended up coming back a few years later. Has risen to their most prominent person, albeit at a failing ESPN. Maybe they will end up cutting him because his salary is the highest of any employee at ESPN. And maybe it's justifiable. Obviously, they're giving Pat McAfee a ton of money right now. But Pat McAfee has proven, like, on his own independently, what he's worth outside of the mainstream sports media. That's why that salary is probably so high for someone like Pat McAfee coming in. But Stephen A. Smith, I don't think he's actually getting fired. I don't know if maybe this is actually him setting the stage for him to leave ESPN on his own. It seems like he's talked a little bit more about that in recent years than we were used to hearing from him. So maybe that's why this is set up, because he's getting ready to leave. I don't necessarily think he's going to be fired, to be honest with you, but he wants to make sure everybody knows that it's possible, that he could be next. And black folks just have it so much worse than white folks, despite when you look at the names of people fired from ESPN. It's pretty obvious that wasn't necessarily the case in this circumstance. What do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comment section below. Is Stephen A. Smith going to be gone from ESPN? What do you think about him once again trying to victimize himself based on the color of his skin? Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later.